Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm doing another little intro just to tell you that by the time I got to the end of this, it was 55 minutes long. So I'm going to split this into two parts, and you will see part one today and you will see part one tomorrow. Of course, I mean part two. So hope you stay tuned for tomorrow, and there's a lot of chatting in this, but I hope you enjoy it. They won't all be like this, but this was a rather special video for me. Okay, take care, and I hope you enjoy the video. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Now, today's video is going to be in memory of my mum, who left us 5 years ago yesterday. And I just suddenly thought last night that it seemed a fitting thing to do. Now, today's video is going to be a slightly different format. So instead of just giving you a long introduction and then whizzing through my makeup, what I thought I'd do is I kind of explain as I go along, talk about my mum and about why I've chosen the products. Let me know if you prefer the other format of me doing a long intro and explaining makeup techniques as I go. But I just wanted to try this out today. So let me know which you prefer, because you guys are important to me and I like to know what you prefer. Okay, so and I'm not going to cry about this because I've sort of already kind of prepared myself for this, and I don't want to well up because I think my mum wouldn't have wanted me to. Okay, she really wouldn't have wanted me to, and I think she'd have been happy that I was doing this as well. Now, today's makeup look is all inspired by my mum. And just to intrigue you, but I'm not going to tell you right now, all the products that I'm using, most of the products that I'm using, I believe, have been given to me as a gift by my mum since she died. Now, you don't have to believe that, right? You really don't have to believe that. By the way, this is hay fever, not me crying. You don't have to believe that, you know, it's just something that keeps me going. And, you know, half of me is very logical person and half of me is a very spiritual person, and I kind of leave it at that, really. So but I do believe that a lot of these things that I'm using today were sent to me from my mum after she died, and I will explain as we go through. My mum and I were very, very close, as she was to my sister as well. But my mum was a nurse and she basically saw me through an awful lot of operations and procedures as a child. And I think when you share adversity together, that makes you very, very close, particularly. And she used to call me my pal Al. And I think that kind of sums it up. We weren't just mum and daughter, we were best friends. And we still are, and I still hear her some days. So I'm going to get on with the video. I'm going to start by using Huda Beauty, and I will explain to you as we go on. I would like to say, by the way, that if it wasn't for my mum, I wouldn't be sitting here today, because I nearly died on my first Christmas, and I'll explain a bit to you about that in a second. So first of all, I am using the Huda Beauty Complexion Perfection Makeup Base. This is very perfumed. I don't mind the smell. It reminds me, if anyone ever had Amarige by Givenchy, it reminds me exactly of that smell. So if you're wondering what it smells like, just have a sniff of Amarige by Givenchy, and it's exactly the same smell. I'm going to just put that on with my hands. The reason this is a very good primer is it's very sticky. So anything that you put over the top will cling to it, okay? Okay, so there is a reason that I'm using Huda Beauty, and there is a reason I'm going to be using Vintage Vamp and Huda Beauty and this highlighter palette, and I'm going to explain why. So, let me explain first about the Huda Beauty. So I'm now going to put on Faux Filter Foundation. Now, it is getting a bit light for me, so I'm going to mix it with this Becca Aqua Luminous Perfecting foundation in tan, which, as you know, was too dark for me, but it's getting a lot of use in the summer since I've got a tan. And it also adds a bit of luminosity to foundations like this that are quite high coverage, so can be a little bit on the flat side. So yeah, and it just, these two look really good together. So as to Huda Beauty, ever since my mum died, I have had some really strange things that can't really be explained. So every Christmas and every birthday, I suddenly either win some money or I get something free out of the blue. And I joke now and say, Mum, where's my birthday present? Where's my Christmas present? Because I just believe that it's a Christmas present or a birthday present from my mum. And all sorts of things like that. I'm just mixing my foundations, by the way. All sorts of things like that have happened since my mum died. Really weird things. Like I'd say, and I think my niece might like this. I'll get it first and try it out, and then I got a parcel with 2 in and only been charged for 1. That kind of thing is just really, really weird. I'm going to explain why the vintage vamp as well in a minute, but let me just explain Huda Beauty. So one of these situations with Huda Beauty, right, is just, I think it was before Christmas last year. I was sort of thinking, oh, I wonder if I'm going to get a Christmas present, because honestly this has happened all the time. And so I put in an order from this company for a serum, and it wasn't very expensive. I think it was the ordinary, and it cost about £8. And when it arrived, there were 2 parcels in it, and one was my serum and the other one was, let me just show you, was this. And it was actually inside the parcel, but it was addressed to there was an invoice to somebody else in it. Now, I will tell you, if you know me, I am as honest as a day is long. Right, where other people go, why did you do that? Why did you give it back? Because I just think you should always be honest, and it will always come back to you. I just believe in that. So I rang up the company and said, look, thank you for my order, but I've actually got 2 orders, and one of them in here is for somebody else. And they said, oh, wow, thank you for your honesty. And I said, look, you know, of course I'm always going to be honest, but I said, please repay that honesty by not making me go to a post office and send this back, because I will often buy things that I know I'm not going to likely to send back, because the post office is quite an uncomfortable trip for me. I have to go over cobbled roads to get to it, which is uncomfortable for anyone. But when you've got a tethered spine, it is really uncomfortable. So I said, you know, can you just send somebody, like a courier or somebody, to pick it up rather than make me go to the post office? And they said, keep it. So that was one of the incidences. Now, when I opened this, because it was sort of another parcel inside my parcel, there were some foundation samples as well. And the foundation samples matched my skin tone. It was just bizarre. And so I looked up and said, thank you, Mum. And I really think the highlighter palette is something that my mum would have bought for me. And Huda, she'd have liked me in Huda because of the sort of tones. She liked me in kind of purpley, maroony shades. And my mum's sister has got very similar taste to her. And she likes me in the vintage vamp, and I'm going to get on to the vintage vamp because that was another kind of situation. Now, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to mix a little bit more just to go to dab over that. It is very high coverage, so you don't need a lot, but I'm just going to mix a tiny bit more. In fact, because it's going in this highlighted area, I'm not going to mix it with the Aqualuminous, because it can afford to be a little bit lighter to highlight these areas on my cheek. Okay, so you all know the story of me with Charlotte Tilbury. And how I was very depressed. And I went online and I ordered some products after watching her enthusiasm. But it was something like a brow kit. I can't really remember, but it wasn't anything, you know, too over the top. And up to that point, I'd never really, even though I was into makeup, I'd never bought a lot of makeup. And I'd never bought really high-end brands that much. If I did, it was like once in a blue moon. But, you know, I might have been an Estée Lauder foundation, but then I'd use it up for over 2 years and that would be it. Not like I'm doing now. And, okay, I'm going to go in with some concealer. And I'm going to use, I was thinking about this. My mum did like Estée Lauder. She used Estée Lauder foundation. So I've got my Estée Lauder concealer. 1 second. Right. Excuse me to keep going off camera, but I've got my little basket down here of the things that I've got ready to do my tutorial. Okay. So, I'd ordered this brow kit and I really liked it. And, I thought it was really good quality, and I was looking at Charlotte's iconic looks. But as you probably know, if you've gone, and I know a few of you have gone through similar situations where you've got conditions that are deteriorated, and that has kind of led to depression. And you will know that when you're in the depths of depression, buying stuff for yourself is very difficult because you feel very guilty about it. And although I really wanted to get one of Charlotte's iconic looks, I didn't feel like I should spend the money on it. You know, it's a lot of money. One of her iconic looks is like £160, and I just thought, you know, and I didn't want to just buy one piece at the time because I realised that it was about getting the look. And then it was, again, just before Christmas, and I won some money. I won £140. And it was then that I thought, because this brow kit had, and I can't remember what else I got, but it was really good quality. I thought, maybe I can spend this money and I can treat it as though it is a Christmas present from my mum. And when I got the vintage vamp and opened it, it was all packaged, you know, you've seen Charlotte Tilbury parcels. It felt like a Christmas present, and I kind of, again, I looked up and said, thank you, Mum. And the vintage vamp, I know, is a look that my mum would have loved on me, because she loved me wearing purples. And as I said, my mum's sister, very similar taste, and it's my mum's sister's favourite look on me as well. And I remember doing a load of looks and then posting one on Christmas Day wearing the vintage vamp, and my aunt said, why did you save the best till last? So that's why I'm going to be using the vintage vamp. Okay, I've probably told you a lot of the stories by now, but the next thing I'm going to do, I haven't got my Becca under eye powder, so I'm just going to get that and I'll be right back. Okay, but so another thing that Wayne Goss has been recommending recently is this Huda Beauty baking powder. And I just, when he said it was really good, I thought, okay. But it's for baking. And the thing is that if you bake your under eyes, I'm not going to talk about age, because you can have fine lines when you're in your 20s. I did used to bake my under eyes when I was younger, but only in two situations in my life have I ever baked my under eyes, and that would be when I was on stage as a singer and for my sister's wedding, because I needed it to stay on all day. And both of those situations were when I was in my late teens or early 20s and I had absolutely no fine lines. Okay, if you bake your under eyes, I did try it with this, just in case there was some miracle about it that wasn't going to do it. And it did it. If you bake your under eyes and you have got any sign of a fine line, it is just going to accentuate it. So don't do it. However, what it is good to bake is if you've got an oily T-zone, it is very good because it will basically suck up all that moisture and hold that foundation on and stop it sliding around during the day. And that's what I have been using it for since I got it. And it is a very good powder. But I was kind of a bit miffed actually that I bought it, because just after I bought it I found out that Charlotte's bringing out her loose powder. And I really want to get that. And I probably will, but I probably couldn't really justify 2 powders. But I think if I'd known that before I bought it, I wouldn't have got the Huda one. Because I have a feeling that Charlotte's is going to be kind of special, and you can probably use that under your eyes. Whereas I would not use this baking powder under my eyes. Okay, so I'm just dabbing this Becca under eye setting powder. Now, the idea of, so if any of you don't know what baking is, I need to get a sponge. I'll be right back. Baking is something that everybody thinks was attributed to Instagram. And let me tell you, I was baking my face at the age of 16, 17 when I was on stage. It is nothing new. It's a bit like teenagers that think they invented being gothic. And I was doing that when I was 12. It has not been invented by Instagram. We've been doing it for years. It's just, especially on stage, yeah, it's just now that you've got the social media and they've called it baking. We didn't call it baking. We just did it. I can't remember if we called it anything really. So the idea of baking is that you dab a lot of powder, either with a puff or with a sponge. You get a lot of powder and I'm just going to tip some of this into the lid. So you get far too much more than you need. Come on. And you dab it onto the skin. You press it into the skin like that. Okay? And you leave it. Now also this will highlight, so it's good if you're doing it in the middle of your face, because that is where you kind of want to highlight the center of your face. And the idea is that the reason they call it baking, it is a good name for it, is because the powder will kind of work together with the oils and in the foundation and the oils in your skin, and it will kind of merge together as one and kind of soak it all up. And a bit like when you're baking, when you mix flour and your other ingredients, it becomes pastry. It's kind of that kind of thing. All right, so the idea is that you dab it all and leave it for about 3 minutes. And what you can do is, because people don't tend to have wrinkles around it, if you've got wrinkles, don't apply it anywhere that you've got wrinkles. Open pores, yes, great for open pores, right? Great for that. But if you've got wrinkles, don't, because it will accentuate them. But also you've probably seen people doing this and baking underneath where they're going to put their bronzer to kind of contrast that line. You know, people can go mad with this, and you just got to experiment and see what works for you. I mean, I am putting a bit on my forehead where there's some lines, but I'm just putting it down the centre, so it should be okay. Okay, but basically I'm putting it on places that get oily to set that foundation. And yeah, so I'm going to leave that for a minute, and then I'm going to move on. I think I've told you all the stories about my mum, but I'm going to just do my brows, and then I will knock all that powder off my face. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to do my brows. So first of all, I'm going to, I'll do Legendary brows first. They always do it in different orders. And I'll tell you, hang on, I haven't got my pencil. I've got something else, right. I'm ready now. So, I was telling you that I might not be here. Well, there's no might about it. I wouldn't have been here had it not been for my mum. So, on my first Christmas, I had an operation to correct my spina bifida. When I say correct, there's no cure, but they have to perform surgery to get rid of it. Now, I had closed spina bifida, not open, but I had a lump. It's sort of quite a rare form. Comparatively speaking, it's quite a rare form of spina bifida. So most people are born with an open back, and you can see the spinal cord. Mine wasn't open. I had a lump, and that type is a lot less common. It's something like, and I might get this wrong, but it's something like 2 in 10,000. Anyway, I might have got that completely wrong, so just ignore that. So I didn't have to have surgery straight after I was born because my back wasn't open, and they wanted to sort my foot out because I had a club foot which needed treatment, and it is often goes alongside spina bifida because it can be caused by a neurological deficit, which obviously spina bifida is, or you can have it on its own. And so it was my first Christmas, and they decided at the time, I don't know why they did it at Christmas, but anyway. So my first Christmas I was in hospital, and I just had spinal surgery just before Christmas, and I was about one day post-op, and my mum was on the ward. It was Christmas Eve, and she noticed that I wasn't looking very well at all. And she also noticed that the nurse had come along and taken my temperature, but not noted it on the chart. And my mum didn't like this. Now, my mum was very self-effacing. If we were ever anywhere near a hospital, she used to turn to me and say, "Don't tell anyone I'm a nurse." She wasn't the type that went in there and said, "I'm a nurse and I know this." But if necessary, she would pull it out of the bag in situations where it had to be pulled out of the bag. And on this particular occasion, she realised that I wasn't looking well. They hadn't noted my temperature, so she went and took my temperature, and it was 104 Fahrenheit. So she called over the nurse and said, "Look, my daughter's got a very high temperature. The doctor needs to come out. Why is that not happening? Why didn't you record her temperature?" And she said, "Look, I'm sorry, we're aware of the situation, but we have a bit of a problem. It's Christmas Eve, and there's a bit of a dispute going on about whether the paediatrician needs to come out or whether the neurosurgeon needs to come out." And at that point, my mum, according to my dad, came into her own and said, "I don't care who comes out, but there's going to be a doctor at my daughter's bedside within the next half an hour, either the neurosurgeon or the paediatrician, and if not, I am going to contact the director of nursing, and in case you don't think I have that," she got out her address book and showed this nurse her telephone number and name and said, "Yes, I'm a health visitor and a midwife, and I will do it." And there was a doctor by my bedside within 20 minutes, and I had post-operative pneumonia. They had to strip me down, give me intravenous antibiotics, and obviously give me drugs to bring my temperature down. And if my mum hadn't done that, I probably would not be here. I'm sure I wouldn't be here. So I owe my life, my entire life, to my mum. Okay, I think that this bake can come off now. All right. So obviously the powder wasn't something given to me by my mum, but I'm going along with the Huda theme. Now, if you can see, that is kind of, it will really mattify your skin. So don't do it all over. I remember, like, at my sister's wedding in the 90s, it wasn't the in thing at all to have any bit of shine showing on your face, and certainly not on stage. And I remember I used to bake my entire face, not just my under eyes and my nose. I literally baked my entire face, which there was not an inch of shine, but you basically, it would stay on all day and it wouldn't budge. So that is face baking for you, with a little bit of an adaptation, but please don't bake under your eyes if you've got any sign of fine lines. If you haven't, then go for it. And that's why I don't talk about age, because some people at 40 haven't got any fine lines, and some people at 20 have got fine lines. So it's about the fine lines, it's not about age. Okay, so you're going to get so many sneaky peeks of the final result. That concludes part 1 of the video in memory of my mum. And I forgot to tell you that even the primer that I put on, the Huda primer, was also partly a gift, because there was a sample of the Huda primer in with the foundation. So it really was using quite a few products. So today I did all the base. Tomorrow you can see the vintage vamp and the highlighter. So yeah, please tune in again tomorrow and I'll upload it as soon as I can. Take care. Bye bye.